be broken in pieces. When the truth comes out, when the truth comes out, you can run, but you know it's ending.
Well, hello there, Gen X. Truth be told, we're here for another week. It's week 3 of the podcast. We are just starting to get into this. It's still pretty new concept, but hey, listen, most of you know the reason that we're here is because I started to get into, trying to find a platform with TikTok. And as we were doing it, we were getting into some deep and heavy conversations. And it just got to the point where we were just sick of the crap, right? We were sick of all the, well, for lack of better terms, we were just sick of the bullshit. We were tired of going back and forth with like, what is true? What is not? You read these headlines, people were going crazy. Everything was getting sensationalized. So each week, as you join me here, we're going to be getting into topics and conversations where we just talk about truth. It is fact over fiction. I don't care about opinions. I genuinely only care about the facts at this point because I am exhausted. I don't know if you're tired, but I'm tired. I'm tired of sensationalized headlines. I am exhausted by all the chitter chatter and everybody going back and forth. And you know what I can't stand the most is when someone takes a tidbit from some sort of social media website where someone, and when I say someone, look, guys, it's on the red, it's on the blue, it's right, left. It doesn't matter what political party we're all doing it, right? We get all excited and we see something. We're like, oh, can you not believe that? And then we go and post it. And then it starts this big thing. I'm over that. Let's be done with that, right? Let's talk about genuine things that are really the heart of the matter for most of us and things that we just don't want to dive into all the crap about anymore. We just want nothing, but we just want facts. That's it. So this week we're talking about hypocrisy much. We're going to talk about matching energy because I'm telling you what, I'm getting sick to death of the one-sidedness of things. And I'm going to give you an example. Let's just get right to it. Let's get into it, right? I was watching something today and they were talking about the vaccines. You remember when COVID came out? You remember all that? And how it was devastating. It was frightening. It was horrible. I'm a severe asthmatic. I've been flown flight for life twice in my life already. And I'm not talking about a Christian Grey helicopter ride. I'm talking about, I literally have been in a helicopter, have been intubated near death because I'm such a severe asthmatic. So when COVID came out, it was pretty horrifying. I was scared to death. My family was scared to death. My husband was an essential worker. When he would go to work, he would come home and literally strip down in the garage, put his stuff in a part bag to wash it because we were literally so germophobic and so scared and so afraid that we were afraid if he came within me with anything on him that could kill me, it would devastate our family. And so we were taking all the precautions because we didn't know what we didn't know, right? But do you remember the liberal side of the party during that whole thing? I literally remember my doctor, my literal general practicing doctor said to me, do not get the vaccine because I'm someone who was quite prone to having allergic reactions. I had underlying health conditions, all these things. Now, most people would think that someone like me would have had to run out and get the vaccine. My own dad was wanting me to rush out and get it. He was petrified I was going to die because I was one of the top 5 chronic asthmatics in the state of Rhode Island in the 70s. That's insane. That's crazy to think about. That's what a sick little kid I was and what a sick adult I am when it comes to my lung and pulmonary and all the things, okay? With that being said, I have learned if we rush into like experimenting with certain things, it could be dangerous. And so my doctor said, we don't have enough information. I don't feel confident about this vaccine yet for you to go out and get this vaccine, Jennifer. But can I tell you the kind of ridicule and how literally people would make me feel as though I genuinely was doing a disservice to society because I refused to get the vaccine. Like literally, like, you're killing other people. I mean, the way that people were sensationalizing this and making us feel as though those that were anti-vax and were not getting the vaccine, we didn't care about humanity. We didn't care about people dying. We didn't care about the disease. We didn't care about that. But there was a lot of things that weren't making sense. And critical thinkers were trying to just take a step back and go, but wait a minute. Let's just slow our roll a little bit, right? So here's what I mean about matching the energy. So at that time, you were all ready to pounce on the people that were not getting vaccines. People were forced to get vaccines to keep their jobs, literally. There were people in the military that had to show vaccine cards or else they were booted. They've lost their pension. They've lost their pay, all the things, right? Remember that? And liberals were going mental about making us feel like we were like the lowest of the lows of society for not getting this vaccine. And how could we be so selfish? Now, isn't it interesting that the CDC, and there's actual warnings from the FDA that now I looked it up because, again, we're going to do facts, and I wanted to make sure, and I was thinking about this, and they've literally said that now you can get let's see, what is it? Myocarditis and pericarditis. This is inflammation of the heart, and young people were dying from this. Young people were dying from this that were getting the COVID vaccine. Okay. So there are young adults. And how many athletes did we hear about literally in the middle of a practice fall and die of a heart attack at 27 years old? Are you kidding me? They were forced to get the vaccine to be able to continue playing on their team. This vaccine was forced down our throats. But why don't you have the same matched energy when you are now seeing that studies are showing that it may not have been all it was cracked up to be, that it may be causing heart problems? They've now removed it from children and pregnant women from having to take it. I don't get it. That's just one example where you're not matching my energy. And I'm frustrated by it because you were so cruel to many of us for being in fear of getting it because we didn't know much about it. And genuinely, now there's all the reports about it, COVID itself coming out of the lab. How come none of you why are you mad? Why aren't you talking about it? Why aren't you frustrated by it? I think about this and I'm just like, this is where it is in society. It's become these platform issues. It's become these party issues. It's become this level of division to where it's not a humanitarian issue anymore. It's not about human beings. It's not about you and I and, cohesiveness and having friendships and being able to go along and do life together. Oh no, it's you're red, you're blue, you're right, you're left. We're divided. That's it. End of story. How do you expect to get anything done in a country where we need bipartisan? I don't understand why it's not upsetting you more. Here's another example. You definitely don't praise the good as much as you emphasize the bad. You could talk about it all day long. Donald Trump is the perfect example. We could go on and on for hours about this man. And this, let me just go here with you because I think you think that I'm just like this Trumper and I'm all positive. Let me just say that there are many things that I am thrilled with that he is doing, okay, as a president. There are. But here's some things that bother me, and I'm going to talk about that more because I think you think all I do is just praise him, and I don't. For instance, on Memorial Day, I thought the tweet or text or X or whatever the hell it is that he put out, what that was, that message had nothing to do with our country. And it just went back to bashing the past administration and all the things. And there's days when I think about that, I'm like, it's senseless and it's useless and it's not serving a purpose. And I don't appreciate it. And as my president, I would like for him to be a little bit more diplomatic, a little bit more grown up, a little bit more adult. But do I think that means he's doing a complete and utter crap job and that he's not doing what he was hired to do and that he's not implementing all the things and making and keeping the promises that he said he would keep? Yes. I think he's messing some of it up. I think that there's some things that he's doing wrong, but you're going to see a matched energy from me. When I see him doing amazing, I'm going to praise it. When I see him doing something that makes me cringe, you're going to hear me say it and you're going to hear me talk about it. But we have forgotten how to do that. We have forgotten how to have common sense and go, this is good. This is not so good. Let me use some critical thinking skills with this. No, nobody's doing that anymore. You know what they're doing? They're like, I've all read, so I'm all about the conservative point of view. And it doesn't matter if anything that he's saying sounds ridiculous or selfish or really just idiotic. Some of the things that just come out of his mouth, I don't want to hear it, quite frankly. Sometimes I wish that's when he did have a speechwriter to just cut him off and say, shh, don't say another word. But overall, I think, and so do 51% of Americans, think that we're in a good state and they think that he's doing a good job. That's pretty darn good. However, I would love to see that from the liberal side of things. You will hear me talk about Democratic and liberal side politicians, senators, congressmen, all of them. I will praise them if they are doing something that is for the better of the people and the good of this country. You will hear me do that. I wish we could hear that more. What a better place this would be. What a better place for us to live in. Another thing, let's talk about this. Where was the matched energy with the whole Biden Hunter? The Hunter Biden thing with Joe Biden and Hunter. Remember when Joe Biden said, I'd never pardon my son. I'd never pardon him. And everybody, especially from the liberal side, just talked about the loving family that, the Biden family is, and Dr. Jill Biden and Joe Biden and all of the things, and praising them. Let's just talk about Hunter Biden for a minute. And I want to know why you don't have that same matched energy when it comes to Trump and his children. Okay. If you were to examine the children from the Trump family, all of his children from all of his wives, because we know he's a little bit of a womanizer. We know he's had multiple wives. I get it. I hear you. I see that. But he's got multiple children, and it doesn't matter which mother mothered these children, and he is the father. I can tell you, one time there was an arrest for Donald Trump Jr., and I think it was before Trump, 10 years before Trump's first administration, and he got arrested for public intoxication. That is the only legal record of conviction that you will find from any of the Trump children. Yet I hear you people criticize their children constantly, ridiculing them constantly. The parents, whether it's Marla, whether it is Ivanka, Melania, the mother, all of them, all of these children are amazing human beings and contributing a great bit to society. Doesn't make me sad from the Biden family when, they lost their first son. But when I think about Hunter and how I never saw the same energy and anger, you all go on 34 felonies. We've got a felon in the office, yada, yada, yada. Hunter Biden was doing coke in the West Wing. I never heard a word about it from any of you. This man was sleeping with his dead brother's widow less than a year from him being buried. This was the kind of character of this man. I mean, let's just talk about him a little bit. We go on and on. He had to be pardoned for 11 years. For someone who didn't do anything, he was pardoned for 11 years by the president, who said he wasn't going to pardon his son. Because why would he need to? It's not necessary, right? Because he wasn't doing all the things that he was accused of. Well, let's not talk about the things that he was accused of. Let's just talk about his convictions and pleas. Firearms-related felonies. Hunter Biden was convicted of 3 federal firearm-related felony charges in June of 2024, stemming from illegally owning a gun while a drug user. Tax evasion and related charges. He pleaded guilty to tax evasion and related charges on September 5th of 2024. Felony charges. The indictment included 1 count of tax evasion and 2 counts of filing false returns. Misdemeanor charges. 6 misdemeanor charges were also a part of the indictment. I mean, we can go on and on. The billions spent by the administration, we'll just skip that for just a second. We'll go back to that. But I was thinking about, and I'm going to pull this up for you because this was an interesting article, and you guys always want, it's like facts. So let's read about it, Jen. So this is from the New York Times. This is not one that's normally, I'm not going to go to Fox because you guys think that, Fox News is just definitely biased, blah, 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 all the things. So let's not do that. Let's talk about what was going on with Hunter. Just with all the collusion and everything like that. Do you guys remember that? Do you remember about not wanting to talk about that? Because we're just going to skip right on over that. And that's not going to be an issue when really it should have been an issue. It should have been a concern for you, all the things that were going on with the Biden family. But let's just talk about his foreign business dealings. And, this is why I say it matters, because you're like, well, that was Biden's son. That was Joe Biden's son. It shouldn't reflect upon the father. Yeah, actually it should, because he was part of it. But so here we go. Let's just talk about this. We'll just go down a little bit because there's so much that we could talk about when it comes to him, but we'll just skip right to the, here we go. In the final weeks of his presidential campaign, Joe Biden falsely claims that my son has not made the money in China, only the guy that is running it. So he was saying that it was all Trump, but then it turns out, sorry, not sorry, it actually had nothing to do with Trump. It actually was Hunter. Hunter discloses that he is under investigation by the Justice Department. The investigation, which began in late 2018, is led by the U.S. Attorney in Delaware and is said by people familiar with the inquiry to have examined potential criminal violations of tax and money laundering laws. He also agreed to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor accounts of failing to pay his 2017 and 18 taxes. Do you remember how guys were like trying to go after Trump and finding all these things, and you couldn't find anything? Nothing was there in the way of taxes. But we're still going to talk about how he evaded all of that and how he did. Hunter Biden went out and got a gun when he was like literally high, which, he wasn't supposed to possess one at the time. It's kind of crazy. Hunter Biden's former business partner, Devin Archer, tells Congress behind closed doors that President Biden spoke to his son's international business associates for more than a decade. According to Democrats, Mr. Archer said that the elder Mr. Biden, our president, was party to any of his son's business dealings, but that Hunter Biden had tried to sell the illusion that he was providing access to his father. So at first he was like, oh no, it's not me. My dad was not completely aware of it. Bullshit. He was. Turns out he ended up being. And then President Biden publicly acknowledges Navy Roberts for the first time. That's his illegitimate grandchild. So then they were hiding a grandchild that wasn't there because he got some crack hooker pregnant. So now she's pregnant and having a baby, and the family like disowned and tried to hide her and make her feel illegitimate. And like and then all of a sudden we're going to praise and we're going to take care of and we're going to pay for this baby now. This is the character of what's coming out of this family. And you're trying to tell me and you're trying to convince me that Joe Biden had no knowledge of any of this, was not aware of any of this. That's what you want us to believe. I am telling you that you would be ripping Trump a new one if Donald Trump Jr. had a hemorrhoid and Senior didn't talk about it. I'm telling you, that's what you do. That's what we've all been watching. And so I think you're going to misunderstand me, and you're going to think that I'm just trying to make it all. It's not about what they're doing. It's that you don't have the matched energy. And so you just want to go on and on and on about all the negatives, the things that you'll try to find that are a negative of the current administration. But you don't look at the 30-year history of Trump in the public eye previous to becoming president. There's so many examples of this. So many examples where you will hound and just literally obsess, like you guys literally do. You'll obsess over it. It makes me insane. It makes me insane when I read about it. If we go on a little bit more, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy opens up impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Do you remember with all of this? Because he said the president was lying about his knowledge of Hunter Biden's business dealings and says that the Biden administration gave him special treatment in criminal tax investigation. And that was found to be true. And so I don't understand, like, I'm not saying that you can't be upset about some of the things that you might read about the Trump administration or Clinton's or Bush or any of them. It's that you just evade and avoid when it comes down to your current administration because you lifted them so high on a pedestal and praised them and went on and on and on about how amazing and wonderful and what a great family and all the things. Here's another one where you didn't match any energy. The billions of $96 billion spent in the 76 days from the time that Trump became president and the time that he took office. The Biden administration spent $96 billion giving out loans to companies that didn't even present a business plan. They were funding all the things that were funding them back. They were funding all the things that served their agenda and their purpose. Could you imagine if Trump did that? Why aren't you mad? That's your money. Those are your taxpayer dollars that went right out the window. $96 billion. Yet you want to bitch when he's out playing golf on a weekend. And I will tell you something, that man gets more done on the golf course than I had ever seen Joe Biden do on a dewy Delaware beach. I can tell you that. I can tell you that for sure. And let's just talk about Joe Biden for a minute. The other thing, why I don't get it, it's devastatingly sad. This man's cancer diagnosis is heartbreaking. If he was my daddy or my grandpa, it would be devastating to me and it would break my heart. But here's the deal. You're going to try to tell me that just shy of 90 days of being out of office, we're just now finding a stage 4 cancer diagnosis with all of the doctors that this administration had available to it? You're trying to tell me that when they talked about, oh, maybe there was some cognitive decline in Biden, and then they were trying to shoo him away and bring in Kamala without the normal democratic process that we would go through during the primaries to bring someone in. They just scooted her in the door and force fed her to us. You think she was the best candidate for us? Really? I mean, think about that for a second. She literally had an abortion bus at the DNC. She literally had Megan Thee Stallion, twerking on stage. That's what you thought was going to bring in the voters. You thought the American people that's what we were in need of, that's what we were going to be voting on. Come on, let's just get real and talk about it. Because everybody sits here and goes, I can't, Jen, I don't even understand why you couldn't have voted for Kamala. I mean, she's a woman. Stop, I'm going to stop you right there. I don't care. I would have rather voted for a cat before I voted for her. Genuinely. I mean, at least they're a little bit more predictable. Yeah, we won't go there. I struggle to talk about that a little bit because it's so infuriating to me, the amount of women that voted or the amount of vote for her because she's Black, vote for her because she's white. That does not make her qualified. It doesn't unqualify her, but it didn't make her qualified. That didn't give me any confidence just because she was a woman. And quite frankly, when I looked up her career and I was trying to look at her platform, she didn't stand for anything that meant anything to me, to be very honest. I couldn't find anything that she was talking about that made me feel like I feel safer in the hands of Kamala. And then all you'll do and all I'll hear, and the only retraction that I get is Trump is a rapist or he's a racist. Really? Give me the examples to where you have that for proof. You've got Jean Carroll, who filed a suit 20 years after the so-called incident happened in a dressing room, in a stall somewhere, that he walked in the middle at 2 p.m. And he's supposedly at the height of his career, one of the wealthiest men in the world. And you're telling me he walked in and this is what he did. And it was 20 years later when he's running for his second presidency, which, by the way, the people that were funding her lawsuit were being supported and built up by the Soros Foundation. You know what I mean? One of those lawyers, all of a sudden, they've got a great interest in Jean Carroll's story. Let me tell you about someone who's a sexual assault survivor. I don't give a shit about a payday. I don't. The people that have done what they have done, where they are sexually abused you or domestic violence, you want to see them behind bars. You want to see them pay for what they did. It's a crime. It's criminal activity, and it should break you to the very core, to where you don't want to see them walking around society, potentially harming and endangering someone else. If you genuinely cared, and if you were honestly someone who was violently assaulted and raped in the middle of a dressing room at Nordstrom's or Tiffany's or wherever she was, and then she's bringing it up, she can't remember all the facts because it's 20 years later, but all she cared about was filing a civil suit. You want someone like me to buy that story? I don't. I struggle to buy it. So calling him a rapist to me, I think is foolish. Do I think he's pompous? Do I think he's arrogant? Do I think maybe he thinks he's God's gift to women? Do I think that he was definitely arrogant in his younger years and all the things? Most definitely. But I don't think that means he walked into a dressing room and raped someone. And that's a huge, huge accusation to make against someone. It just blows my mind. But then none of you want to talk about the things that Hunter Biden was doing to other women. It's insane to me. And so it's like, that's what I mean about hypocrisy much. The matched energy, where is it at? I don't see it. I don't hear it. We're going to talk about what a great family the Biden family is. And quite frankly, let's talk about Dr. Jill Biden. How horrible. If that was my husband, get that man out of that seat and get him back on the beach. Get him an ice cream cone and let him enjoy his elder years. The fact that that family was pushing and encouraging him and putting him center stage, when that man, everybody in the free world could see his decline. It was definitely elder abuse, but his family, they're the ones that I'm the most disgusted with, because how in the world could you look at him and not know that he was not fit? But you all would just talk about how amazing he was. I don't get it. I'm going to really struggle to get it. But he was pretty spot on how to figure out how to spend that $95 billion in the last 76 days. Maybe he wasn't that far off from being cognitively popular. I don't know. Listen, I read something the other day. It says, hypocrisy in the Democratic Party. Don't be fooled. Americans care deeply about democracy, about the process, but they won't be lectured to by hypocrites. 51% of Americans now identify as independent voters, myself included. Let that sink in. Let's hope the Democratic Party has taken a good long look at its lack of credibility on the democracy as Democrats process results of this election and plot a path forward. Listen, you guys, the Democrats didn't lose the election necessarily because most people felt, if you really think about it, the entire platform was just to try to bring Donald Trump down. Instead of trying to bring him down or cause accusation or find things wrong with him, you should have been bringing up your platform and what you were going to do for the American people. So ranting and raving and bitching about him didn't get you anywhere. That didn't get you anywhere. And I felt like you honed in on the vulnerable or the weak-minded or those that were struggling financially. Like you weren't even talking about what you could do to help Americans become better. When you hear "Make America Great Again," I think it's because the majority of Americans are tired and exhausted of struggling, of division. Genuinely, we don't want to be divided, contrary to what you Democrats might think and what the media might think. We don't like it. I get so sad when I see someone come online. Literally, I've seen this. I've seen a few Black Americans come online with their TikTok and say, "White people, can we be friends?" What in the hell? Why are we even asking that question? And the majority of the people, listen, is there racism in this country? Absolutely. I'm not foolish to believe that. Okay. There's evil in this country. There's a lot of things in this country, but the majority of the people want to simply get along. Nobody should have to ask me based on the color of their skin, can we be friends? I shouldn't have to reach out to Black people and say, Black people, can we be friends? Yeah, why couldn't we? And if you're basing it on the color of your skin, I really just want to search your heart. That's really what matters to me. And actually what matters to most people. And you're going to sit here and harp on this whole thing about Donald Trump being a racist. Point it out to me. Every single time I have this conversation, I say, give me an example where this man did something that was racist, genuinely a racist comment, a racist act, defiant against someone of another race. And I don't know how many times it's been found in the media where they took a little snippet of something and they turned it into something and publicized that. But then when they took the whole gamut of what was actually said, had nothing to do with race. They did that in North Carolina a few years back in his first administration, and it didn't fly well. It worked for just a short little minute. And then people started to see the truth and they were like, well, wait a minute. When I started researching, that's not actually what he said. Literally, was it ABC or CNN or CBS? One of them had to literally donate $15 million for defamation for some of the things that they've said about this man. If you really want to research it and if you really want to look into it, look into it. But the amount of time that you spend honing in on how negative and how many things you can find wrong with him, you're missing the good that's actually being done. I'm not saying it's all good, but the good that is being done, you're missing it because you're too honed in on your hate and your anger, the party of love. You're wanting to come out and say that you are a party of unity. You are a party of inclusion. You are a party of togetherness. How is that being together? Really? How is some of the actions that I've seen? I've talked about this before. The whole Tesla thing. You all lost your minds because you just couldn't stand Elon Musk. You couldn't stand what he was doing with Doge. Now, look, even if there were some discrepancies in some of the things they said that was happening, 85% or higher of what he found was factual. The money that has been spent was factual. Money that we are spending to hundreds of different countries, millions and billions of dollars, and it's literally in the billions, while we have American veterans here suffering. When we have a homeless community, like 800,000 homeless Americans last year, oh my goodness, why aren't you mad that those millions and billions aren't going to the Americans in this country? Doesn't mean we can't have Samaritan hearts. It doesn't mean that we can't help other people. Does it mean you do it at the detriment of your own stateside men and women Americans? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? And why are you getting mad at the people who are praising the man for finding these flaws? And so much is being unearthed that it should make you just feel sick to your stomach. But it's not. That's the matched energy I'm talking about. Nobody's saying don't be pissed about something that happens on the conservative side or something with Donald Trump or something that's factual that's brought to the table, but nobody's looking for facts anymore. They're just looking at headlines and then they're jumping on it and then they're losing their minds, literally losing their minds and spending hours upon hours on trying to bring a man down based on something that wasn't even factual. I don't know. I'll give you an example of the Democrats trying to the Republicans trying to do it. I saw a story and immediately my heart in the whole beginning with the Doge thing, I saw the story about Chelsea Clinton. I can't find one thing factually about it of how she got yes, was a lot of money funded through USAID and all of that to the Clinton administration. It was. I haven't been able to see or find anything that has dissected exactly where it has gone, but people would like you to believe in the nationalized and sensationalized headlines and things on TikTok and things on Facebook that this woman got $85 million for her wedding in a mansion. I can't find it. I can't find it anywhere. So I'm not going to harp on that train. And until you can give me factual evidence that that's actually what happened, that that's where she wrote the check for her wedding, that that's where she wrote the check for her house, I don't know. I'm not going to jump on that train and I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, the Clintons, oh, Chelsea Clinton, all the thing. No, because there's nothing that shows me that actually happened. But we did spend $20 million on a Sesame Street program in another country. Really? Do you know what we could have done with that $20 million for Americans? The mental decline. This is what I was talking about with the mental decline of Joe Biden I went on a rampage and I got off the whole cancer diagnosis. I am sad that the way that came down, but we waited with bated breath for him to have a good day. What in the actual hell? I remember feeling like this. Do you remember when he was president? It was like, oh, he had a good day and he didn't fall asleep. at 3:00. Why was that acceptable to you? Why should we be okay with that as the current administration? That is not something that we should have been praising. That is something where we should have been fearful that someone that ill was at the helm of our country and running it. He wasn't running it. There were people behind the scenes running it. And I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I told you, if Trump had a hemorrhoid, literally and genuinely, you'd want an exorcism to be done. This is what I mean about the lack of matched energy. That's the kind of stuff that it drives me crazy. I did read this and it resonated with me. So the Party of Saving Democracy lied about the fact that its president was cognitively impaired and unable to do basic job functions. It lied about the fact that an unelected Politburo of unknown bureaucrats were running the country and the White House. Then, as if that cover-up wasn't bad enough, it acted as if its opposition was a unique threat to the very concept of our democracy, that Trump was the threat. All while spitting democracy while a virtually senile president was taking the helm. It quite literally does not get more hypocritical than that. Oh, and the Dems' plan was to make it even worse in a second term. Thompson also said that the plan for Biden's handlers was to have him pop out occasionally like the groundhog on Groundhog Day to show proof of life while a team of nameless, faceless aides actually ran the country. That should frighten all of us. That should have been bothering all of you. Those are the type of things where I say, why is that not matching your energy? Let's talk about another one. I can give you another example. This one tans my hide like no other. The whole George Floyd thing was a travesty. And I think that you think I'm going to go down this road and be like, well, he was a crackhead and all these other things. He deserved what he got. No, I don't think so at all. Look, some people may disagree with me. I've watched those videos time and time again. I watched the whole, I think it was 31 minutes and 26 seconds or something like that, the video of where he was being, held down by the neck. Was he on crack that day? Did he take drugs that day? Did he try to pass counterfeit bills that day? All the things. Does that account for him having someone with their knee embedded in his neck for a good long while? No, I think at some point they could have let up, especially when you heard people screaming, saying he's foaming at the mouth, get off his neck, he can't breathe, he can't breathe. Okay? So do I think that that man deserved to die? Absolutely not. Do I think he may or may not have died because of his drug intake that day? There's a possibility. I don't know if we're ever going to know. But here's what we do know. He wasn't a hero. He didn't deserve to have a statue erected in his name. He didn't do anything monumental that was the good for humanity. The whole Black Lives Matter movement, literally in 2021, they had $90 million. The amount that assets that were $846,000 in 1 year went to security services that were closely related to the person who was running the BLM, which she has now removed herself from the organization, but lives in a multi-million-dollar mansion in Georgia. Are you kidding me? A lot of you took money that you get up every single day and go to work for and contributed to that organization. And so what I'm saying is, I'm not saying Black lives don't matter. They absolutely, I think all lives matter, quite frankly. Okay. But if there is an organization that is literally and genuinely, I need to plug my phone in. Plug this in before it dies. But if there's an organization that is going to go ahead and fund college scholarships or, I don't know. I heard that there were a few things that where they donated some millions. I think it was a total of 21 million or something like that. But they collected in the first year over $90 million. Where is the money? Where has it gone? And what are they doing with it? However, yet, this is where the hypocrisy much and how I don't feel like you're taking the true American spirit. So you wanted us to all get on board for that George Floyd movement, and you were infuriated, and we were all racist for not doing that and all the things. Now, I'm not going to lie. There were a few people that I've seen. Social media is a brutal thing, and I saw some people say some pretty harsh things against the Floyd family, and that broke my heart. That is not the sentiment of most Americans, but most of us don't believe he was a hero. What I don't understand now, Democrats, is your energy to go after and be saving and having margaritas with literally known MS-13 gang members who have been sent to El Salvador. And you're going to talk about due process. Don't even try to go there with me, because we have beat this dead horse to nothing, into glue. Okay? Because we all know exactly what happened with that gentleman. Now, are there some things happening in this clean sweep with immigration where sometimes I sit back and go, I'm not sure. I'll be honest with you. There's a little 4-year-old girl right now that's got a serious disease. It's it's an intestinal thing to where if she's not getting this IV treat, she could die. She could die if something happens to that IV within 4 days and they're wanting to deport her. And I'm telling you, that doesn't sit well with me. That doesn't sit well with me. Abrego Garcia sitting in somewhere in El Salvador having a margarita with one of our congressmen also doesn't sit well with me. And the fact that you erected George Floyd as though he was some sort of hero, but during the congressional speech in the very beginning of this presidency, when literally there were mothers standing because their daughters were taken and died at the hand of illegal immigrants, they all sat down. They all sat down. There was one Democrat from New York, I believe, who stood up when they honored DJ, when they honored the young man that was going to West Point, when they honored Laken, Jocelyn. These women were murdered by illegal immigrants. And you are all fighting for the due process for these people, yet you don't give a shit about the due process of what happened to those women. The due process eluded all of you when they were able to come into the country illegally to begin with. Do I think there's a huge immigration problem? Yes. Do I think that there is something that we need to do to make it more refined and to make sure that we are vetting people and that people seeking asylum and people needing refuge and people needing rescue and medical attention and all of the above be able to come into this across that border legally and safely? 100%. Do I think that we should be an open border for criminals to just come on in and have their way with the women in the streets of America? Absolutely not. So it's repulsive to me that I see the energy that I saw for George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement and all the things. But when that came to head, you weren't more angry about how and the people that were allowed into this country. So see, you think that the problem is that we just don't want anybody here from another country, or that we don't want to be good Samaritans, or that we don't want to help those in need. Absolutely. But we've got to figure out a way to do it safely to keep Americans safe. Well, I mean, why does that not bother you? I don't understand. I'm never going to understand that. And this has been an issue for some time. And so do I think the process is perfect? Do I think what this administration is doing does not have cracks and flaws and there aren't people slipping through the cracks that probably should be allowed to stay? Yes. But that's the problem that you are getting served up now, because how do you vet? Imagine doing the due process for 11 million people. We don't have enough judges. We don't have enough court systems. We are literally, it's like finding needles in a haystack. But you're not thinking like that. You're just like, oh no, it should have bothered you that senator flew all the way over there to sit and have margaritas. And when I would sit there and people would talk about this with me on TikTok and online and go back and forth about that. Yeah, but this is a Maryland dad of 3 children, happily married, working, paying his taxes. Let's back up a little bit. He's not a Maryland dad. He was an immigrant that was here literally with a withholdal of removal, which never guaranteed him a stay in this country. It was temporary. He was always deportable. He had gone before multiple judges that said, nope, they weren't going to give him asylum, all the other things. He was leaving regardless. The withholdal of removal was to protect him from going back to El Salvador. That was the country that he was fleeing from. That was where, which by the way, it was because he was in fear of a rival gang member. Remember that whole thing? He wasn't a member of a gang. Then why would you be afraid of the rival gang if you weren't part of the other one? But I digress. We won't go there, right? That's not necessary. So at the end of the day, people, just start putting your thinking caps on. Start doing some research before you jump on a bandwagon or jump on a soapbox to stand up and fight for something that really, how good is it for the American people? How much did that serve? All the efforts in other ways. And what happened? What happened to that? I don't hear about him anymore. You know what's interesting? I don't hear from the wife. You know, the wife that loved him so much, the one that was blocking all of his tattoos and all their videos and pictures and posts. And that was before he got sent away. Why? Why? Because he had MS-13 gang tattoos on his hand. But we're not going to go there because you're all just going to, argue about that and say that's not what that was. But here's the thing. It's interesting. She got hundreds of thousands of dollars from a GoFundMe. She's quiet. She's not fighting to get him back. Do you hear from her? Do you see her in the news missing her husband? And he wasn't a Maryland dad of 3. He was a dad. He fathered one child. She had 2 previous children, which, by the way, they got married when he was being held. He wasn't arrested. He was being held during the, potential deportation process. And one of the advice of his attorneys was marry her. And so he did. I mean, that was like super romantic. I don't know if I would have seen that on one of my Pinterest pages, but we could go there or not. But this is what I mean. So, what would be great is if as a country, we could stop listening to the media and we could stop listening to the over sensationalized headlines and we could stop listening to the opinions of others and just stop and do this. And then pick up your phone or read it for yourself. Find the facts before you go with some biased media source or someone that shared something that may have saw something that didn't know anything, all the things. Get the facts first before you blast it across social media. I guess that's the thing where I say nobody's stopping and listening and reading anymore. They're just getting all heightened. It's like you guys are like little petulant toddlers that are just like bouncing off walls. Read. Get your information, get your facts. I've done it occasionally. I've seen something that instantly hit something that broke me. And without finding out if it was true, I immediately responded. And within a day had to retract it because I thought, okay, that was stupid, Jennifer. You should have took a minute and just read. That was somebody just planting a seed to fuel a fire. I mean, let's not do that. So people, this one ran over a little bit longer than I thought, but the ultimate message that I'm saying here is let's not be so divided and let's not be one against the other. Let's try to start having conversations. And even if we don't agree, you don't agree with a lot of what I say. I don't agree with it, but I would love to sit down and still have the conversation and respect one another for our opinions and then go our separate ways. It doesn't have to be so hate-filled, and it's just getting out of control, and it's heartbreaking. So, at the end of the day, can we just try to love each other a little bit more and be quick to listen and slow to speak? It's tough to do sometimes, but try it. You might be surprised what you hear when you're listening, and then it might enlighten you a little bit. I don't know. That's really all I got for you guys today. I am super thrilled by the fact that a lot of you have been joining in, and I love the conversation that goes back and forth. So please feel free to like, comment, message, share, all the things. Let me know your thoughts. I'm not afraid to hear your thoughts, and I'm not afraid to get into the conversation. Let's not start hate. Let's not be hate-filled. Let's be love-filled, but we can have a conversation. I love you guys. Truth be told, that's all I got for you today.